Hey YouTube, so I'm working on the mural today, and I thought I would give you a bit of a sneak peek on the work in progress. So this was the image that I was painting on the easel when I was doing the acrylic sketch, and now today we're getting it on the wall. And so this stage that I'm doing is basically the underpainting. And basically the underpainting is just a monotone painting, and rather than thinking of color, I'm thinking more in terms of light and shadow and form. So you're really just taking color out of the equation at this stage, and then that just allows my brain to focus more on the forms and the perspective and the proportions and, you know, all of those things that actually make an image. So let's get a closer look. So you've got these guys in the foreground here, and as you can tell, these guys are a lot more detailed. You can see that the pencil is still showing up on the wall, so I'm not painting over all of the pencil, because that's not what I want to do. The pencil is just a guideline, but really what I'm doing in this stage is I'm using the paint to just kind of block in the areas of like deep shadow, areas that are obscured from the light, basically, because that's what gives the illusion of form. So, you know, some of these guidelines that you can see for the Hussar wings, I'm just going to leave those alone, because in the final painting the light is actually going to be hitting on those wings anyway. I have indicated them a little bit with the paint just to kind of preserve the placement, but they're actually going to get painted over anyway. So it's really just blocking in shapes now. So when I was doing the pencil stage, obviously I was thinking more in terms of proportion and silhouette and, you know, just doing all the line work. But this underpainting stage is really just blocking in the basic shapes. So I'm getting a lot more coverage on the wall, especially on this guy. He's got a lot of shadow on him. So we're just thinking of designing really interesting shapes. And that's probably the most important part about this stage, is that you're not really aiming for perfection. You're really just trying to get a general impression of what you're trying to do. You know, the perfectionism can come later, when you start applying color and you start modeling the forms a lot more. Then you can be a bit more of a perfectionist. But I think in this stage it's very, very important that you are just getting a general sense of the forms, because that's how you're going to get more interesting shapes. So we've got the flag bearer here, and then obviously you got these guys in the background, and they are a lot more heavily blocked in. They are not as detailed as those guys over there. So anyone that's far away in the background of the image, they just get blocked in even more heavily. And I'm really simplifying these guys because they're so far away in the distance. You are unlikely to see any kind of real detail in them. Obviously I'm going to model them and color them in, and they're going to look a little more refined than they are now. But for this stage, it's very, very important that I keep them simplified so as to not disrupt the hierarchy of the perspective, because basically the general rule is this: anything that's in the foreground is going to be a lot more detailed. Anything that's in the background, you've really got to simplify. If you try to make all of these figures detailed, well, one, that's just going to take forever, and two, it's not going to look as good as you think. You know, it's that old phrase that simplicity is like the highest form of beauty, or it's the ultimate form of sophistication, or something like that. But anyway, you get what I'm trying to say. You've really got to simplify the background figures, because you don't want them competing with the people in the foreground. So the colors that I'm using, it's just a combination of, right now I'm just using purple, black and white. So I'm just kind of mixing like a very grayish purple, which is typically a pretty good color for the shadows, depending on the environment, obviously. But for this environment that I'm painting them in, I think that's gonna work pretty well. And they do look rather dark. The shadows do look quite dark, and that's because it's a pure white wall. So anytime you're painting on a blank white surface, any color you're gonna put on there is gonna look very, very dark. But once we start throwing some colors on the background, the shadows won't look that dark at all. They only look dark because they're on a white surface. So that's just something you gotta keep in mind. Sometimes people do an underpainting for their paintings, you know, like they might use like a brown surface or like a golden surface just to sort of tone down that whiteness. Personally for me, I prefer painting on a white surface because you get the cleanest colors out of it. It's a little bit difficult to mix your values and it's a bit difficult to mix your colors right on a white surface, but you do get the cleanest colors. So that's why I like to work on a pure white surface anyway. And these are just acrylic paints, so you know, they dry very quickly and I can just paint over them as many times as I need to until I get the image right. So I've only got a little bit left to do on this stage really. I've got just these figures in the background here. I think there's another guy somewhere around here. That's him there in between these two. I might add maybe another one on the edge, just kind of balance that out. But otherwise, I think it's coming along fairly well. And once I finish this stage, it will be the background colors. So that's when I'll be, you know, painting the sky, and I'll be painting like the snow textures for the ground, getting the colors in there. I like to personally paint the background before painting the figures because the environment that they are in heavily dictates what kind of colors the figures are going to be, especially because they're wearing armor, which is like very highly reflective material. That armor is going to be reflecting the surrounding environment, so it makes sense to actually paint the environment first and then do the figures later. So that's kind of the game plan right now, but I'll keep you all updated on how this piece progresses. In the meantime, I'm gonna jump back into it. So let me just walk back so you can get a better idea of the full image. So there we go. I think it's going to look pretty good when it's done, hopefully. Only one way to find out.